Hey, I'm Lisa. Welcome to our kitchen. We are a homesteading family and I follow a Mediterranean diet. So one of the things that I meal prep every single week is homemade pizza. A lot of families do pizza night once a week. We do it on Friday nights. Let me know what night your family does pizza night down in the comments. Now I make two different kinds of pizza crusts because Charlie and I do a whole wheat pizza and my boys like a white pizza. So I'm gonna show you how to make pizza crust two ways. It is really hot here in South Carolina, and so we don't want to use the ovens to heat up the house, but we want that really delicious wood-fired pizza taste that you get from a really hot oven. So we make pizza on the grill, and we're gonna show you how we make our pizza crust and then how we cook it on the grill to get that really great wood-fired taste. In addition to showing you how to make homemade pizza, I'm gonna show you how to make an absolutely delicious olive oil pistachio base to put on your pizza. It's one of my favorite ways to top pizza, and I know that you're gonna love it. Pizza crust is one of the absolute easiest things to learn how to make from scratch if you're wanting to start getting into your own breads, and sourdough is a little bit intimidating. I highly suggest you give pizza dough a try. So you do need some active yeast. I like to use this jar of yeast and I keep it in my refrigerator. To each of the bowls, I'm just going to add 1/8 of a teaspoon of yeast. It doesn't take a lot of yeast at all to make pizza crust. This is gonna be my white dough here. And so in my white dough, just to show you a couple different ways to do this, I'm gonna add sugar. I've got a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. This is gonna activate our yeast, so it's really important to get in there. And then in my whole wheat dough, to keep aligned with the Mediterranean diet, instead of using sugar, I'm going to use honey. So I'm going to use a 1/2 teaspoon of honey in this bowl. And I'm a rebel, so I don't always measure perfectly, but this is gonna be approximately 1/2 teaspoon of honey, maybe a little bit more. And now to each bowl, I'm gonna add 3/4 of a cup of warm, not hot, water. And then to make the white crust, I'm gonna add 2 cups of white flour. So that is to bowl number 1. And to make the whole wheat crust, I add 2 cups of whole wheat flour. Now, if your family won't eat an entire whole wheat pizza, you can do 1/2 cup of white and 1/2 cup of whole wheat. But I do 2 cups of whole wheat and it works out just fine. You can also do a white wheat flour, which is a little lighter than the whole wheat. Then to each of the bowls, I'm gonna add in 1 teaspoon of salt. So that is the beginning of our pizza crust, and now I'm going to mix them together. Want to keep stirring it and getting all of those dry bits up. If the dough seems a bit dry, you can add a little more water. I'm not gonna do that quite yet. You can get in there with your hands too to just really make sure you get it as well mixed as possible. It's gonna be pretty rustic looking, which is fine. Just wanna try to get those dry bits, so I'm just using the dough to scrape, but it's coming together quite well. Doing the same thing over here with the whole wheat. The whole wheat flour definitely sometimes needs a little bit more water. Today though, it's pretty good, so I don't think I'm going to need to add more water. So you're gonna have a pretty rustic looking ball, just like that. And then here is our white dough. So same exact thing for both doughs. The only difference is I used whole wheat flour and honey here, and here I used a little bit of sugar and white flour. I'm gonna wash my hands. Next, we're just gonna take some plastic wrap and cover each of the bowls. I do like to use plastic wrap instead of a towel because it keeps the dough from drying out much better. Okay, so that is it for this portion of making homemade pizza dough. So now I'm just going to set this over on my counter and I'm gonna come back tomorrow and show you what we're gonna do with it next. It's the next day, and now that our pizza crusts have sat for 24 hours, I am ready to proof them to get ready to go on the grill for our pizzas. So all I have to do for this part is just take this plastic wrap off, and I'm gonna treat the whole wheat dough the same way that I'm going to treat the white dough. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this dough and put it in my hand. I'm gonna open my olive oil. So there's a little bit of olive oil at the bottom of my bowl. And then I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna form it into 2 balls. It's just kind of like a sourdough stretch and fold. If you watched my sourdough video, it's the same kind of thing. I'm just making 2 pizza balls. So there's 1. The olive oil helps so you don't get those holes in the dough when you stretch it out, or at least not as many of them. And this is just activating the gluten in the dough. So there we go, that one's done. And so now this is just gonna sit for another 45 minutes to an hour. And then we can roll them out and make them into pizza crusts. So I'm gonna do the same thing with the white dough. Some olive oil on the bottom of the bowl. I'm trying to get them as equal as I can. They're definitely not gonna be perfect. Just rolling them into balls. Just like that. And that's it for that part. And now I'm just gonna let these sit for another hour. Then we're gonna stretch out the dough to make our pizza crusts. I'm going to make my favorite pizza topping, which is an olive oil pistachio topping. I first had this at a restaurant called Evo in Charleston, and it is one of my absolute favorites. So I'm just putting some pistachios in my jar. And I'm gonna add in some olive oil. Next, I'm going to grate some cheese in there. This is that really good creamy Toscano dipped in Syrah that I get at Trader Joe's. If you see my Trader Joe's shopping video, I say that this is life-changing cheese, and I definitely mean it. Okay. Put as much or as little cheese in there as you want to. Then I'm going to take my immersion blender. You definitely want to use a nice tall mason jar for this so it doesn't fly all over the place. I'm just going to take my immersion blender and stick it right in here. Just want to blend it until you get those pistachios broken up. So once it's all blended up, you're going to have a sauce that looks like this. It's really delicious on pizza. So now we are ready to stretch out the dough. So I've got some parchment paper here because I am going to need that to actually assemble my pizza. But for now, I'm going to take some flour. I'm going to put it right on my clean countertop. And then I'm gonna take one of my dough balls out and get it on the flour and just start patting it out like this, stretching it a bit. I make very rustic pizza crusts, so they are not going to be perfectly round. Sometimes they are pretty round, sometimes they're more like a square. You don't want those holes. And so I'm gonna take my parchment paper, and then once I get it to where it's getting nice and flattened out here, I'm gonna transfer it to my parchment paper. And this is the part where if you've got kids, it's really fun to let them build their own pizzas, and everyone in the family can build their own. So I'm just gonna keep kind of working this dough and getting it stretched out. You want to try to make the crust as thin as you possibly can. So you see these edges that are kind of thick? I'm just pushing those down more to try to stretch it out as much as I can. And so that crust is pretty much ready to have the toppings put on it. Okay, so I'm ready to assemble my pizza, and I am doing Mediterranean pizza. So first I'm putting that yummy pistachio sauce that we just made on it. There's a couple whole pistachios on there. You want to try to get them ground up a little bit better than I did. I was just getting impatient because I'm hungry. Okay, so I've got that yummy sauce on there. This sauce is so delicious. If you have never tried this, you've got to do it. And then I'm going to get some cheese. I really load mine up with veggies, and I'm using 2 kinds of cheese. So I'm putting kind of like a light sprinkling of cheese on here because I'm gonna really load it up with other stuff. So maybe just a little bit more. And then I've got red onion that I grew in the garden. I've got mushrooms that I just sauteed in a little bit of olive oil. So I'm gonna put those all over. Okay, now I've got my Kalamata olives that I'm gonna put all over. You can put whatever you like. This is just what I like on my pizza. Then I've got some baby spinach. Then I am just putting some of these beautiful Carolina gold tomatoes that I grew in my garden on top. And now I'm gonna shake some feta on top just to finish it off. I'm gonna take my pizza paddle, slide it right under there. So now that I've got my beautiful pizza assembled, I am going to take it outside to the grill.
So now we put the pizza on the grill. So what I do is I set my grill to 500 degrees and I place this directly onto a baking stone. So here I go. And we wait, it takes about literally less than 10 minutes and the pizza is perfect.
That looks absolutely amazing.
So here's our pizza, all done. And this is the beautiful result in less than 10 minutes, right here, homemade pizza.
Look at that delicious pizza, whole wheat crust, lots of veggies, that super yummy pistachio sauce, feta, Kalamata olives. I can't wait to dig into this. Here's my very rustic whole wheat crust Mediterranean style pizza, and I am going to take a bite. It looks so good. Absolutely delicious.
So here's my pizza. Mushroom, a little bit of onion on it, pepperoni. Absolutely amazing, and make sure you gotta fold it and take a good old bite. Oh yeah, this is good.